Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Again, and this time, shouts out to MLR because you came through on that Cash App again, and you have by far won for consistency. And I thank you from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Now, I want to tell you guys about a problem I'm facing, not so much to whine and complain, but it's part of the point that I'm making. But since I'm facing it, I know what I'm talking about, and I don't have to tell you anything secondhand. I will ask the Muslims in the audience to supplicate to Allah on my behalf. If things are settled by tomorrow, I don't have to ask for anything extra. If things are not, I'm going to have to turn to the audience and I'm going to have to beg. But fortunately, I was able to avoid that before. We'll see what happens tomorrow. At my new job, there is not one black coworker yet. There probably will be, but there is not one yet. You would think that they are. As a new employee, I'm supposed to have my residency sponsorship transferred over. In other words, they become the new sponsors of my residency. They did not. I asked yesterday about it. The gentleman responsible said, actually, I'm the one that's supposed to do that, and I'm going to. And I know he meant that. Today, after work, I got a message on my phone from the Ministry of Interior that my final exit visa was issued. I mentioned it yesterday because I thought maybe we could avoid exactly this, but I didn't know it was going to happen today, and sure enough, here it is. Now, I told him, and he said, okay, we're going to talk to him tomorrow to fix this. And I said, okay. If he cannot cancel it at my old company, if he can't cancel it, because he's the only one I know to call, but if he cannot cancel it, I need to know as soon as, because I got to make my way back to my old city, see my wife one more time, then I need to fly out the country. I don't have any other choice. I have to do it this way. And I need to be quick. If we can fix it tomorrow, well and good. And tomorrow we're going to be busy. And I'm going to say, look, it doesn't do me any good to be doing all of this until we fix this. Which is why I made mention of it early on. He's not a mean guy. I'm not talking bad about him. Even I didn't know when this was going to come. But what I wanted you guys to understand is that what I'm going to say about Nigga America does not only apply to our race or race and nationality intersected. It doesn't apply only to us. This happens across the board to many people. This is a common occurrence amongst human beings in general. I wanted you to understand that. When you become a very organized person or an organized society, it becomes easy to start looking at less organized people as being inferior. That doesn't make it okay to oppress them and colonize them. Europeans developed that mindset. That's what wound up being the case. It doesn't make it right. I wanted you to know and understand this so that as you black men move away from Nigga America and its negativity, which are sponsored by the gynocracy and the hyenocracy, it will become easy to start looking down on people that are less organized, and maybe they're inferior to you. In that regard, they will be, absolutely, in that regard. But it won't make it okay to oppress them. It can make them okay to say, you stay over there because I'm not mixing my stuff with yours till you get organized. But it will not make it okay to oppress them and do them wrong. Wrong will still be wrong. Making promises to them and then breaking it, scamming them, that'll still be wrong. Listen, one other thing, y'all. I titled this as I did for a reason, the way I spelled it. I didn't get Deion Sanders mixed up with Derrick Jackson. I titled this Nigga America and its creation of Deion Jackson for a reason. See, Deion Sanders went to Colorado and he had to go to Colorado. I mean, let's be honest. He could not afford to stay with Jackson State. That was not an option. Deion Sanders could not afford that. I mean, for one, Jackson ain't got clean water if he's staying within Jackson. But The other thing too to understand is that, see, when your car is being broken into and your son's car is being broken into or stolen, when you're the victim of actual crime and you have to donate half of your salary and utilize a bunch of connections to get things done that the university is supposed to be able to do because they have the funds to do it, you don't have a choice. You can't stay indefinitely. So if someone comes along and offers you the fortune that Colorado is offering him, he'd be stupid to not take it. This is a phenomenon called brain drain. It applies to brains, but also to other talent. If you come from an oppressed society, and we are that, regardless of what some of y'all might want to say about the bootstraps and whatever other conservative and Republican BS y'all want to talk. Niggas make me sick with that mess. We are an oppressed society. We do come from that. When you come from that oppressed society and you are exceptional in talent or intellect, some skill, you are going to be offered a lot to leave and go join a wealthier, better off society. Now, that society doesn't necessarily have to be a bunch of oppressors just because they're not so broke that they can't afford to pay you. It doesn't have to be that. But the society, you got to understand that society will have more money. Usually, it'll have more money because they're a society of oppressors. Colorado admitted they didn't have the money to pay him, that they don't have it. They've not even hidden that recently. They said, we don't have the money to pay him. Now, that is a valid concern. That should not be ignored. But I also want you guys to understand that when it comes down to that, there's no way he would have known that. So if he signed with him, he wasn't wrong. He did what he was supposed to do with the knowledge he had. See, I recently, actually over a month ago, I turned down an institute job. I turned down a job where I turned down an offer to work from 4 to 9 at p.m. for the same salary that I was making previously. Now, previously I worked about 6 hours. 4 of them were spent actually working in the classroom. The other 2 were spent doing other things, and sometimes I was free. So it was about the same overall, with just worse hours, but I turned it down. And the reason I did was mainly because I had doubts that they could afford to pay. When I first went to them and talked to them, they said, we can't afford what you were making at your previous job. That's what they said. Then they came back and started texting and saying, look, we're offering you this. And I thought, well, if they said they can't afford it, I don't believe that they just got more funding. I don't believe that. And that was why I turned it down. Now, the hours were also bad. I would have never been able to see my wife, and that's not acceptable to me. Now I live in another city, but the idea is that she'd be able to join me. And if I was, in fact, if tomorrow, like I said, everything is settled with the residency sponsorship, then, hey, look, you know what? Then we're Gucci. I'm not optimistic about it. But then again, I'm not an optimistic person. That's not her fault. It's not mine. It's the way the world is. But I also want to point this out, though, for everyone's benefit. Deion Sanders did not know what I had the benefit and the luxury of knowing when he went into the negotiations with Colorado. So he had to go on the information he did have. And that information was not a whole lot. Most people don't get to know what I was allowed to know about the institute with whom I was negotiating. That ain't his fault. Ain't mine. It's just the way it was. He signed. He wasn't stupid for that. Race loyalty is expensive. You have to be able to afford it, even financially, and most of us can't. And you can't get to where you can financially afford it if you start off being race loyal before you get the money, before you get the bag. That's just what it is. There's always an element of loyalty you cannot afford to have. If you live altruistically, you will not have much in life. I'm not even that altruistic, and I don't have much to show for it financially. Like I said, I may have to turn around and beg you all for not only $3.15 each subscriber. I may have to turn around and beg you all for that within a particular number of days, because actually by the new year, because I have to do something in a third country, but I thought I would have time to do it. If I find out tomorrow, you know what, they can't cancel it, you got to leave. That means I got to leave by the beginning of the year, and I can't go back stateside. So then I got to accelerate everything, and I'd have to turn to y'all for help. Not much per person, but that's the situation in which I am. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I have tried to be at least a good moral person. If I had no morality, I would have lived off interest and made a good bit of money off of that by now. Some would say, well, you know, Allah's going to provide, and he wouldn't have provided you that if you would go on that route. Yes, he would have. Yeah, he would provide, and he would have provided that. He would have provided that extra if I'd gone that route, because I would have given up my morality to do it. And I do believe that being, generally speaking, pro-black is moral, generally speaking. But now it's about being pro-black male, especially in the West, because you can't be pro-black Western female at this point. You just can't. Not because you hate them, but because they don't love you. They don't even respect you enough to believe that you deserve anything. They right off the bat see you as deserving of whatever the hell in life you don't want. You hate something? Well, it must be good for you. Here. Or you like that? Well, it must be bad for you. Give it to me. And now let's move on to the pastor player pimp Jackson. Nigga America also created him. See, Nigga America manufactures a few talented people like all societies do, but then penalizes them for their loyalty. And that's what happened with Deion Sanders. That same Nigga America is gathering around Pastor Player Jackson. That's what's going on. Now, I don't know how long ago it was, but I heard that it was less than a week ago that his wife was sitting up talking about some, well, in the name of Jesus, take your blessings away and you have a blessed day. After telling you off in Jesus' name, if you had something to say about what he was doing, then she says, have a blessed day. What kind of ignorant mess is that? And the thing is, I wonder if her brain's fried from having to deal with knowledge of him cheating all this time, or just not caring because he's, Pastor Player Jackson. But Nigga America also turns him out. He is also a product of that same gynocracy. Absolutely, he is. Don't get it twisted. He has to be. Brother Jackson, preachy, right? Well, that's what the gynocracy turns out. And that's not always a bad thing. But it also turns out this inconsistency, because see, a guy like him with his looks, 1% height, 1% money, has to be that dude. It's a must. And they're going to keep chasing him. They're not going to leave him alone. They're going to keep running after him. So what you expect to happen? He's Brother Jackson. And these women won't leave him be. He, with his height and his muscles and then his money, got famous and was known throughout. Do you expect me to believe that the women with whom he cheated didn't know who he was? He sits in a car and records himself and makes money doing it. You expect me to believe that they didn't know who he was? They weren't with that man even though he had to have somebody. They were with that man because he had somebody. End of. Because that's how the game works. Nigga America does that. Now, there was one, I think, that may have just recently gotten into the country, and she maybe really did not know yet. And even then I got doubts. Because if she was from any of the island nations, especially Anglophone island nations, they're just as ratchet. It's the same mess, different accent. They look for a guy that's got enough women. That's just who they are. They can't just, calm down and go with the single guy. Nope. They're all competing with each other to take the wanted guy and to avoid the unwanted guy. That's who they are. So I'm looking at these, I'm looking at them and I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what? That's nigga America for you. They're not slick. It'd be nice if they were, but they're not. But I also want y'all to keep this in mind too, folks, as best you possibly can. You guys have been doing the right thing. You have been moving away from nigga America with its negativity. And I am vaingloriously proud of you for that. You and the black manosphere have made that move. You've said, nope, we're not staying with this. The golden sphere tried, but there were certain things they couldn't get rid of. Elements of the hyenocracy they just were addicted to the extent that they just weren't going to be able to leave these things behind. So grudges and beefs developed for nothing, misunderstandings, and then reconciliations that weren't supposed to be the case took place. People who should not have been reconciled wound up reconciled. And I'm looking at them like, are you effing kidding me? And people were trolling like kids, those who didn't even mean them any harm from the beginning. It was and is a royal mess. And every so often I peek my head back in. I've now gotten down to peeking in every 2 months to see if I can help. But at the state but what I can observe is that I can't help. So I can't do anything. I wanted to be able to help with that, but I couldn't. Because they were not ready to leave negativity of nigga America behind. You're doing it. This is who you are. This is how you are. You're doing an excellent job of it. I'm looking at you and I'm saying, man, this is great. You are leaving behind the porch monkeyism, the spear chuckerism of the hyenocracy. We were the ones that were pointing fingers at Pastor Player Jackson and holding him to accountability. We were the ones that said, wait a minute, Deion Sanders didn't really have a choice to better his family and to better the situation for his family. He had to do what he had to do. Colorado offered him. He didn't know they didn't have enough money. That's a valid concern once they said it and they admitted it, but he didn't know that at the time. They said this after they signed a contract with him. You got to go somewhere better than that. And I'm going to tell you, we're not going to sit up here and make a whole lot of money. The thing is that we've got talents, but we're in a system that says you must be extra talented to get less back. And that it's a good thing that we're leaving, that we're repatriating. BMPTs, Black Male Passport Travelers of different acronyms and stripes and descriptions are repatriating collectively. And these other nations that were willing to give us at least an equal shot are going to benefit from this. I mean, to be honest with you, gentlemen, you know what? No joke. One of the reasons why I don't feel so afraid, even with what I'm facing now, is because of you. One of the reasons that I feel like another guy who's in the States doesn't have to be terribly afraid of what he's going to be facing is because of you. Because when you help me out through Cash App, I turn and I help him with something. It's because of you. God has made you reliable. I mean, I rely on God first and ultimately, but in the meantime and in between, the means he has designated has been you. You can take down nations, not so much always by rebellion. You can simply leave a nation and you can see what happens. I mean, think about it. The nation within a nation from which we come, nigga America, is crying because you are going. And if you have not physically left, and this is just a few of you that are actually doing this, when you have not physically left, you've still mentally checked out, and they can see that too. And this gets them because when you see mentally checked out and disconnected, they know, okay, he ain't going to be accepted in white America and he ain't even trying to be. And he don't even look for that. So what's next? Oh, he going to be one of them passport bros. I could see him doing that. Oh, he's intelligent. And he ain't with the BS. And when I come along and I say, excuse me, mister, and I wiggle some flesh around and I tell him I just got evicted with my kids by other men, he looks me up and down and he's thinking critically and he's saying no. He's telling me what I would tell him if the shoe was on the other foot and the roles were reversed. He's doing exactly what I would do. He gonna become one of them passport bros, or as they say, passport boys. Nigga America is going to crumble. And America's gonna feel it for two reasons. One, they're gonna feel it because we're gonna be out. See, we were a built-in good deal and pressure valve, even for the economy. The economy relies on subconscious things that go on in people's minds. And even these things had a safety valve, which was us. Did you know that when a bunch of us go into a particular field, the price command we have goes down just because it's a bunch of us that dominate it? Did you know that? It's a subconscious thing in the minds of everybody, even us. Imagine if all plumbers were black. Plumbers would make the same money that they make now. There's nothing we could do about it. It's not our fault, but that's what would happen. Imagine if most of the barbers in the United States were black. Man, people would not pay nothing for it. The prices would go down. You would just find people not willing to pay as much for a haircut as they are now. End of. Because, and they wouldn't even all be aware of why they were doing this. It's not our fault. We've made it despite this. So now when we're checking out of Nigga America and about to check out of America and the UK and other nations, what do you think? You see what's going on. You see what's happening. Well, in white America, when we check out of that too, their men have already been doing that to a certain extent. But now with us talking about it, their men are beginning to do it even more. So they're checking out. And the U.S. is going to have to figure out a way to continue on and maintain its position without the help of its men. And it can't do it. No one can. You have really upset the apple cart, and I am vaingloriously proud of you for doing that. Shout out to you, black man. I hope this message has been a benefit. Thank you for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, blackout. Assalamu alaikum, black heterosexual, non-select male patriarchy. Just because they don't like it. I didn't mean to say it that way. I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry. Because I was looking at the time and saying, dang, I done gone in almost 25 minutes. My bad. But y'all get the idea. And thanks again for flying with Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with me until the wings and the wheels fall off. Justice forever.